I mean, I've seen these cops, folks, and they are pathetic. I mean, they're just weak. You look in their eyes. A real warrior, somebody who's really strong, wants to fight other warriors. I mean, it's just totally sick. It's really a bunch of limp-wristed people in big fancy battle outfits, and they just love cornering a woman and beating the hell out of her. And I'm not saying all police are like that. You can tell a cop. I mean, it seems like the bigger and the tougher and the meaner the cop is, the nicer they are. It's always these, I hate to say it, it's like these liberal cops. They're just women cops. And I'm not saying all women cops, but I've noticed it. They got something to prove. They're scared. They're cowards. They're domesticated. I mean, if you're not really strong and you don't want to protect people, you shouldn't be a cop. And if you like to abuse people, you don't need to be a cop. But instead, they want the sicko abusers. They want the people that have problems. They want the people that are wimps. They don't want people that are peacemakers, that are peace officers, who are negotiators. I hate to use a popular culture example, but was Matt Dillon out just, because that's a good example of I've actually read the histories of a good sheriff. I mean, it's a little overblown, and, he was in a lot more, in the fictitious Gunsmoke than a sheriff really would be. But in some cases, there were some sheriffs that were in that type of action. But the issue is, he was out walking softly, carrying a big stick, not looking for trouble, being friendly, knew how to negotiate with people, but that if he had to be rough, he would be. That's what you're supposed to have in a lawman. Not just some arrogant wimp who, if somebody looks at him wrong, or some old lady scared when 10 cops stomp into her house because she calls an ambulance, and some old lady who's, low on oxygen, dying, and feels absolutely horrible and has organs failing, is grumpy and barely talks some trash to the cops, so they taser her and make her go into convulsions. I mean, you shouldn't be a cop if you can't handle, oh, an old lady got smart mouth with me, tasered. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. It's a bunch of look, these are all spoiled, rotten kids who mommy gave them everything, and they were bullies in school, and now they're a cop, and everybody's got to bow down to them. I'm not doing it, okay? I'm done. I know thugs when I see it. I know cowards when I see it, and I've had enough. Let me see. We got Mike in New Orleans, Kathy, George, Ronnie, and many others. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, and I'll get to more of your calls coming up in an hour. An hour is only 14 minutes away. I need to go ahead and get into all the news, and I almost want to cut up these pieces I do live here on air and then post it on prisonplanet.tv as vignettes, as separate thoughts, so that it's not just caught in the wider stream of calls and guests and my ramblings, because the information I'm about to cover here is just of import that is so great. It's even mind-blowing to me, somebody who just constantly studies this information. But let me go ahead and just note here, this is extremely important. I'm about to go through news, and this is extremely, extremely important information that you are about to hear. Dollar should be replaced as international standard, UN report says. And if the guys give me a document cam shot, I will show you this article for prisonplanet.tv viewers. The dollar is an unreliable international currency and should be replaced by a more stable system, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs said in a report released Tuesday. So this is a CIA, OSS, Pentagon-created system in 1945 to dissolve other nations and bring them under the corporate governance. And here we are 60 years later, 60-plus years later, and they're saying dissolve our currency. Now remember, this is a creation of our traitorous government. The use of the dollar for international trade came under increasing scrutiny when the U.S. economy fell into recession. The dollar has proven not to be a stable store of value, which is a requisite for a stable reserve currency, the report said. Many countries in Asia in particular have been building up massive dollar reserves. As a result, those countries' currencies have become undervalued, decreasing their ability to import goods from abroad. The World Economic and Social Survey 2010 is supporting a proposal long advocated by the International Monetary Fund to create a standardized international system for liquidity transfer. Now, what is the G20 calling for? What is Geithner calling for? What is Goldman Sachs calling for? What are the real corporate spies? They're not Ruskies, they're not Chi-Coms, they're corporate spies. And it's almost like we're Native Americans and these corporate spies are smallpox. We have no immunity to them. All we're worried about is, foreign enemies wearing turbans, and so we can't see it. Now, decades ago, the globalists said they would do this. They would first destroy and debase our currency, use the devaluation of it to fund their planetary regime. They would then implode the dollar and create a global reserve currency owned and run by private banking consortium, the elite banks. And now they've got the Financial Reform Act, which the Washington Post admits fully takes over our banks. That is real banks down the street from you, as the Texas Banking Association said 2 months ago. This is a global corporate banking takeover of real banks that is taking place right now. So it's a global consolidation. And as they called for at the Copenhagen Treaty last year, for the environment, they wanted an SDR and global carbon tax. Now for the oil spill, they want the carbon tax. For every reason under the sun, they need this, they say. And they go on to say, under this proposal, countries would no longer have to buy up foreign currencies. They would simply have special drawing rights, or SDRs, from the IMF and World Bank. And it would be a basket of currencies. So what that means is the yen, the yuan, the euro, the dollar, they will all be pegged and set to whatever level that the private central banks tell them to be at. So they won't be a unified value. This will allow the mega banks to also currency speculate however they want, insider trade however they want, their main shareholder being Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase. Globally, that's the top two, and always behind every new evil, whether it's oil spills or banker bailouts or selling people derivatives they know we're going to implode. When we come back, I'm going to finish up with this key news, because here they are now. Here they are out in the open, global governance, SDRs, the end of the dollar's not good. The very banks that took over our country and did this to the dollar are now saying, oh, it's not reliable, we've got a new system, so they can rape you even better. The Rockefellers, on record, created the League of Nations. They created the United Nations. They have always openly called for a world corporate government for the administrative convenience of international bankers. That's a quote by David Rockefeller. In his memoirs, New York Times, he's made similar statements. So, out in the open, they got our country in debt. They had a private Federal Reserve takeover. For every dollar you use or get paid at your job, debt is created for there to just be a dollar in the system. They have money machines. They're able to buy up the world. Now they've destroyed our system. Through that, they consolidate power. We eat the Ponzi scheme. We pay the tens of trillions of dollars. The Greeks lose their islands. The Greeks lose their roads. We lose our infrastructure, our ports. Our taxes go up. And then now the bankers create a new bubble that is SDRs above the nation state, and you will pay carbon taxes on everything you do directly to private banks. They are now even above the nations that they're dissolving. Now, that is high treason. That is who this country's threatened by. That's who sold us out to China and used China to deindustrialize this country. This is the group that has set up the SPP, trying to get rid of our borders, the group that got rid of Europe's borders and got rid of their due process and their sovereignty. It's amazing. This is a private, corporate, hostile takeover of America. And then meanwhile, the news is leaving our borders wide open. But the top story is 11 Russian spies that were so deadly they could have brought down America. Of course Russia has spies. Of course they're spies. And it's important that they be exposed. But this is the top news story, that Russia reportedly had 11 spies in this country, when we have corporations that are foreign, that openly call for world government, that openly are establishing a world banking structure that we will pay taxes to, that have bought off our politicians and give them campaign contributions in plain view. Foreign corporate spies that own and run banks bigger than any one government through fraud. They've gotten this power. And they are there making cash payments to the president and the members of Congress. And not telling Congress, when Congress asks over and over again, where are the trillions of dollars? The congressman asked the head of the Fed, the head of the Treasury, the head of the New York Fed, and they say, I'm not going to tell you. And now under the reform, they announce that, oh, this will fix the big bankers that did all of this and that set up the derivatives. The very Federal Reserve that represents these elite banks, it will now have unlimited power in financial regulation over anything that affects the economy.